Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare.
You have to have control of your senses to raise children. Why? Because if you get angry at the children, it'll destroy your relationship with them. Be very kind. Be able to control your anger. Never be harsh. Why? Because let's say the child is like, 5 years old, right? If you get really angry, the child is devastated. They can be psychologically, let's say, hurt by the anger of the mother or father. And if you beat the child, that's even worse. Then they become afraid. So we have to have control of our mind and senses if we have children. We should never get angry or threaten them in any way. We're supposed to protect them, not threaten them and scare them. Right? When a young child is scared, that could put them in psychological problem for the rest of their life. You have to be very careful about scaring children. Children depend completely on their mother and father, and if the mother and father act in crazy ways, that stunts the development of the child. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do. So we have to have control of our mind and senses. Never get angry and scare children or beat them. You can, Prabhupada said, you can show the stick, but don't use it. That was his way of showing the stick by which the child becomes afraid to commit any more nonsense. But you don't use the stick, right? Haripol.
Values and habits.
Do you have any grandfather, grandmother? Yeah, the children should spend time with the grandmother and grandfather. Because usually the grandmother and grandfather, usually, not all the time, but usually, they're more friendly than the parents. They don't get angry fast, and they always spoil the children sometimes, and they're very kind. So that helps a lot to help the children to grow. They have a grandmother and grandfather. And they have two sets of grandmothers and grandfathers who are willing to spend money, take them to places, talk nicely to them, because they don't have to take care of the children. Right? The parents have to take care of the children. So usually, if the grandmother and grandfather are sane people, they will spoil the kids with love. But the parents, sometimes they get angry. So oftentimes the children are very happy to see the grandmother and grandfather, because they will give them some extra money or some extra food or take them out. And whereas the mother and father, they have so many responsibilities. They're not really, in what you would call a happy state of mind all the time. Right? Whereas the retired grandfather and grandmother, they don't have all that responsibility, so they can take care of the kids. Right? Now, if the kids don't have grandfather and grandmother, that's a shame. That's a shame, because they're going to miss that extra, let's say, quality of love and devotion in their life. So they don't have anyone to support them when there are big problems. Well, then it is devotees who can take the place of the grandfather and grandmother. There's always going to be somebody that has a natural penchant for loving children. It could be also a person who you hire to take care of the kids. Although they're not the mother and father, but they might develop, affection for the children. Just like in my family, I had this lady, Winnie. Winnie used to iron all the clothing and do all the cleaning in the house. And I would sit down and watch her and talk to her, and she was always kind, right? She was a person who was always praying. She was not a nasty person, a very nice person. I was always happy to be with her. She'd be ironing the clothes, and I would be right near her and talking to her. And so she was very, very kind. In fact, one day I had killed some butterflies, so I asked Winnie, I said, Winnie, can you just hold the wings of this butterfly so I can pin it the correct way? And she said, no, I can't do that. I said, why not? I said, no. She said, no, I'm a Christian. I said, I'm a Christian also. What does that have to do with anything? She said, I won't touch any living entity and use that living entity in any harmful way. I said, you don't have to worry. I already killed the butterfly. She said, no, I won't touch it. It doesn't matter if it's alive or dead. I won't touch it. And I was really confused when she said that. I had never met a person that talked like that. And she was just an ordinary person. She didn't have any PhD or anything like that, But she was a religious lady. And she didn't want to hurt any living entity, whether it was living or dead. So that was a big shock for me. And Winnie taught me a lesson. That is, we shouldn't hurt anyone, living or dead. Haribol. Well, like I said, monkey see, monkey do. If you're following the rules and regulations of Krishna Consciousness, then your child will follow you. If you are watching television and you tell your kid, go upstairs and do your homework. And the kid said, oh, I got to go upstairs and do my homework. But my dad and mom, they can watch television, right? It's a very, very bad example. You should be sitting with your child when the child is doing homework to make sure that the kid is not watching television. And don't give the kid a television or a cell phone. That's a big mistake. Cell phone is more dangerous than television. And you should be sitting with the child when they're doing their homework and help the child and be there or be nowhere, right? A lot of people are too busy to spend quality time with their kids. Maybe they'll go on a vacation, but what about all the other days? So no, it should be a regular thing. Every day the parents should be with their kids after work. They come home, and at least once a day the whole family should sit down together in the table and have prasadam and talk to each other. And then after that, before that, they should chant Hare Krishna and thank Krishna for nice prasadam. And then after the prasadam, they should help their kids with the homework that they're doing. In other words, spend quality time with the children, at least for 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours at night. If it's one of these things where everybody has a different time when they eat. They never sit down all together at all, you know. And the kid has his own room, and he always goes to his room and closes the door. You don't know what he's doing, and he's got the cell phone in that room, and you don't know who he's talking to. You don't know what he's hearing, what he's doing. A very, very bad model. Very, very bad model. I think you have to sit down with your child and talk a lot. Know what their who their teacher is, know what the curriculum is, and always have a close relationship with your child. And you should have that, the dinner, where the whole family sits together, and you have periodical vacations, very important. So the family has some quality time together. So if you can do that, you don't want to be in a situation when a child is going farther and farther away from you, right? In other words, the child comes home, eats something, and then goes into his room, locks the door, and gets on the internet. Those are very bad. He doesn't even eat, or she doesn't even eat with the family, right? So having that, at least have this family together, family that prays together, stays together, and there is a chance that you should not have a family in which each member of the family eats at a different time, and you got to be able to have a family table, and everybody sits down together, and they have a chance to talk with each other. Well, again, you have to learn to wake up early and get some things done, and plan your day, and especially be able to go to sleep, like 9 o'clock at night, so you can wake up and be able to get other things done early in the morning. The best is to homeschool, right up through college, right up to the college. Because they're going to come into contact with so many nonsense people. And it's going to be very difficult for the kids to not be, in one way or other influenced. So homeschooling is the best. In my way of looking at it. Because if there's homeschooling, the parents are also engaged in the schooling of the child. And that will make a big difference in the culture of the family. You don't want to have a family where everybody eats at a different time, and the kids, slam the door closed and lock it, and then that's it. They're on the internet the rest of the night. That's very bad, very, very bad way to, very bad way to live. Well, see, there's all different ways. You might work at home. You don't have to work in a company. You work in a company, but you can work from home. So then you're seeing your family all the time, right? But if you have to go to work and come, and then you have to cook and this and that, that puts more pressure on you. The best way is, the husband works and the wife takes care of the house. I mean, that's the best way, You might make less money, but you have more of a chance to have a Krishna conscious life. If it's not like that, husband and wife have to work. Well, they have to, they're doing that because they want to make a certain amount of money. Okay, fine. But, that puts more pressure on you to, make sure you chant your rounds every day. And, at the same time, do the work you have to do for the company and do the work you have to do for the family. It's a lot of responsibility. Only high level, let's say, achievers can do that, because they know how to organize their time and not do things that are beyond their ability. So let's say you want to take 8 different classes. I mean, how are you going to do all the homework? It's not possible. I mean, it's possible, but you're overwhelmed with all the homework you have to do. So it's better, just take it easy with the number of, courses you take. So that should be also taken into account, because if you take so many courses, it's impossible to do anything else except do the homework every night,
Makes sense, Maharaj.
That's not very good. Some kids commit suicide. The parents force them, to be a high achiever, and all of a sudden they collapse. Sometimes they commit suicide. Sometimes they shoot their parents. Sometimes they go into a doctor, a psychiatrist, whatever. So you don't want to push your children to do, what they're not capable of doing. Every child is different. So you have to see, some children are, they're straight A children, right? And other children get B's and C's. And then there are other children that get D's, So the more more stability of the family is what counts. If you get to the point where you're hardly even seeing your parents, and the kids are, most of the time just spending, when they come home, they're in the in their room. That's not good. You got to have that dinner where you're all together, every night. And you have to take, periodical vacations together. And also, chant Hare Krishna. We have that extra thing, so everybody doesn't do that. Of course, Christians chant also. They also have prayers. Muslims also have prayers. We're not the only ones. But we should not force our children to become too stressed by the work that they're doing, on academic work that they're doing. There has to be time they can chant their rounds. There has to be time where they can have some exercise. There has to be time when they can spend with the family. So we have to be very careful not to push the kids too much, but rather have a good time with the kids, taking them out on hikes or this or that every once in a while, and going to, India, or in other words, the parents have to realize, that these children have been born because they were already Krishna conscious in their previous life, right? So now they're born in a family of devotees. So they're special children, and they're not ordinary children, right? And therefore, you have to be very careful to help them to go further into their Krishna consciousness, because they're born in a Krishna conscious family. Obviously, they're special children, and we should realize that, and make sure that we can help them continue in their progress, spiritual progress, not simply academic progress. Academic progress is, secondary or third place. First place is Krishna consciousness. Second place is being a honest person, and a person who will always knows how to manage their time. And then third place is being a academic person. But the main thing is to have the time to chant your rounds, especially when kids are, around 12 years old, and then 16 years old. They have to be trained to chant 16 rounds every day. If they can't chant 16, then let's say 6 or 8. But they should be chanting. They should get that into their culture. The worst thing is that, the kids are chanting 10 rounds or 16 rounds when they're 12 years old, and then they get into school and they're overwhelmed with their homework, and it ends up they don't chant any rounds, right? And then they go to college, they don't chant any rounds. And maybe when they get to be 30 or 40, they might start chanting again. That's a very, very bad situation. And it happens to most of our kids, unfortunately. So we don't really emphasize. I don't think we really emphasize strong enough chanting the rounds.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram.